Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to HobbyVolt. Today we're going to be talking about Gundam paint prep, specifically the priming phase of it. It's a very, very important part of it. So let's get into it. What we're going to be using for this project is a Tamiya Fine Surface primer in light gray. It's a fairly expensive bottle. I think it's about $8. There are cheaper ways to do it. I'll get more into that later. But for this project and for something you can grab really quick at your hobby store, I'm going to go ahead and show you this one. So you want to make sure that you shake it and you want to make sure that it's warm. I do it several different ways. Sometimes I leave it in the sun, depending upon where you're doing. I'm spraying outside. You also want to go ahead and test out your spray can primer on a spoon, as you can see here. That way you can kind of get a feel for it before you actually get it on the pieces. And then let's get started. What you're seeing here is how I went ahead and separated the leg pieces for my actual model kit that I'm going to be working on. And I put on skewers and alligator clips, which I referenced in a previous video. But anyways, first thing you want to do is go ahead and make sure that there's no dust on it. Again, I am spraying outside, so anything could fall on it. So that's kind of the importance of actually cleaning off your piece. So you want to make sure that your spray can is shaken the whole entire time that you're actually working on it. It's very important. And you want to go ahead and test it out, like you see here, just so you kind of get a feel for it. As you can see, look at all the overspray. I'm not using a fan. I am outside, like I said, so I have enough actual ventilation to be able to do it. So, you know, cheapest, best way to do it. Here you can see that I'm doing light strokes, and the lighter the coat, the better. You don't want to do a super heavy coat, which I'll show you here soon what happens when you go overboard. Right here you'll see what happens when you overspray something and you just get way too much paint on it, and it'll happen. It's going to happen when you're working on a kit. So as you see, I'm spraying it like way too much, putting it on way too thick. And what you're going to get is just an absolute mess. You're going to lose all your detail, and look at that. But if you're on your first coat, no big deal. Just grab a paper towel and wipe it off really quickly before it's dried. It will dry fairly fast. I'm outside, so it will dry really fast. So you want to go ahead and take something that's not going to leave a lot of residue on it. I choose a paper towel that I keep handy, and I just wipe it off. I make sure all the paint gets out of the crevices so that you have a clear surface to work with. That's very important. You can see a lot of stuff is flying around in the background. That's just what happens when you work outside. So just be careful. You don't need a fancy paint booth. There's no reason to spend a bunch of money for a fancy paint booth, especially if you're just starting out. Just take your piece and put it back on its alligator clip and reapproach it, and it should be fine. Just make sure that you're doing light coats and not going super crazy, and you can always go back later and do another coat. And just make sure that you keep all your detail. What you see here is after 2 coats of primer, I set everything in my foam block and I leave it to the side. I generally bring them inside. It's humid enough to where it will dry fast enough that nothing will get on it. And I am in an enclosed room. But as you can see the light gray color, which I'm using for my actual paint scheme, so it'll look really nice. You will have overspray, so you might want to wear gloves. I don't, obviously. Your hand's going to end up looking like a rock depending upon the color of your primer. This is what your booth is going to look like, or your makeshift booth. That's why it doesn't matter that it's a cardboard box.
Yeah, so right there you can, right there you can see where there's some uneven texture. Again, that probably came from where I was sanding, so, you know, that's why I kind of roughly did this. So I can realistically show you guys what happens if you don't appropriately prepare your part and you don't make sure that it's polished and you have a good enough surface. Also, some of this is doing this outside in the humidity, but really, you just gotta take your time. I don't have a fancy paint booth, so this is like the cheapest, best way that I can get for most beginners, and you don't really need a fancy paint booth. I think a lot of people try to sell you on that, but it's not necessary, you know. But yeah, you can see the pitting there. I've already went ahead and sanded it with some coarse sandpaper. Oh, this is with some coarse sandpaper. You can see this one's been used like 80 million times, but it's faithful. And then I get rid of some of the potholes that you can see there, and then I'll take like a finer grit and go over it and smooth it, and it'll look a lot better. Sorry for it being kind of shaky, but I mean, again, it's all a learning experience. Just pretty much, you know, take your time, see how it's it didn't completely get all the way at the edge there. Part of that's from me filming and not being able to fully focus on it, but you won't be filming when you do this part. But yeah, you kind of just got to be careful, and it's fine. You know, make sure you do light layers. You don't want to do huge layers like you saw earlier in the video, and it gets gumped up and it's just messy. So do light layers, it's fine. And before you put another layer down, go ahead and sand out the imperfections. Sand out the imperfections that you see there, and then just respray it again, and it'll lay just fine. So yeah, I'm actually kind of glad that kind of happened. Everything else turned out pretty good. I'm gonna let it sit overnight, and once it sits overnight, then I'm gonna do another layer. So right now I'm kind of taking the time to go ahead and sand it. This piece right here is what happens when you spray it immediately after the first coat. Kind of not what you want to do. You can even see where my sanding streaks were on the plastic, which again I did on purpose so that I could show this. This is just an Exia. It's not like a super great huge model. It's just the 1/100. So very, very simple model. So I'm glad that I can show you guys what happens if you mess up, because it's totally fixable and it's totally fine. But everything else, you know, came out pretty well. What's really great about it is you want to make sure you do the thin layers so that you don't lose some of that detailing. Yeah, because that detailing is really, really important. Just, you know, take your time, do light strokes. Everyone's going to do it differently. You may do it completely differently than I do, which is completely fine. But I just try to do it in light strokes and a little bit away, and it's just, you kind of got to feel for it. You'll learn throughout your time actually experimenting with it. But yeah, everything can be fixed. I chose a light gray primer for the actual paint scheme that I'm going to choose to do on this. But you can, there's white, there's black, there's literally any kind of primer that you want. But I'm using the Tamiya Fine Surface primer here. But when it comes to doing, come on, focus, seriously. When it comes to doing multiple layers though, you want to make sure that everything's dry. Otherwise it's just going to be, you know, it's going to be bad. So, you know, just take your time. That's the biggest part about painting. And everyone's got a different method, different way. You're going to have different reactions, and sometimes when they mess up, it looks cool like that. And if it's just too terribly messed up, you can always do battle damage. That's what pretty much everyone in the Gunpla community does when they have such a massive mess up on a piece. They just go ahead and put battle damage on it. But if you're going for pristine, perfect, you know, just with anything else in life, take your time, do it right, work on it. You'll get better. Trust me. I was not perfect the first time I did it. And yeah, you'll be good to go. Thanks, guys. I've royally jacked up this piece. Kind of the problem trying to do this outside. And maybe a mixture between the box got a little bit of hair in it. I believe it's from my cat, actually. So it got stuck in the coat here, and I tried to rip it off as fast as I could, see if I could cut it, salvage it. But it had dried so fast with how warm it is outside that I couldn't get it off without ruining it. So I tried to wipe it off, but what tends to happen is when you put a layer over another layer, you can quickly get all the layers that you've actually primed on there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this Tamiya Color acrylic paint thinner, and we're going to put it on a paper towel and try to wipe it off and try to get the paint out of the crevices so it doesn't mess it up. And we're going to try and respray it. It's the only piece that I messed up, but that's what we're going to go ahead and do. We're going to take some of this thinner here. It's probably better. You're going to want to wear a mask and actually some gloves too. I am out of gloves right now, so that part kind of sucks. And then you're just going to go And you're going to try and wipe off as much as you can. And then you're going to clean off the piece. And then what we'll do is I'm going to leave the sides alone because there's nothing wrong with them. I'm just going to try the top part here. Let's see. Try the top part here and get it nice and smooth and try to get it out of the crevices here. I'm going to take something that I use a lot of. It's a dental pick. And I'm going to try and get rid of the paint that's inside. Be really careful with it. Because you don't want to accidentally, you know, do some scribing that you don't actually want to do. But yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to get rid of the excess inside of the lines. And I'm going to try and respray this piece after I've sanded it down some. And it'll be fine. Literally one of the worst things that can happen. You kind of just got to roll with it. Because there's nothing you can do about it. And you don't want to keep respraying over this messed up part right here. Because it'll just look horrible. So, you know, that's fine. It's fine if that happens. It's probably going to happen more than once, especially if you're spraying outside. But it's fixable. So, let's see what happens. Here's the jacked up one. You can see there's a little messed up part about it. This one right here, I did really well. So you can kind of see the difference. I actually messed it up one more time, but it looks pretty good. And this is going to be the third coat on all of it. They're still kind of drying. I'm going to leave them out here for a little bit longer. And then that's pretty much it. That should be good, and the leg parts will be ready for painting. When I paint models, I like to do the legs first, so that I know what I want to do with the rest of the body so that my piece ends up really cohesive. But yeah, that's it.
And that's pretty much everything you need to know about how I prime my pieces. Again, this is a very small project. It's not like a giant one. I'm not being extra thorough on it, but you can get a really good result just from taking your time doing light coats, and here's what your pieces are going to look like. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below, and I will gladly answer them for you. Thank you for watching today, guys. Have a good day.